Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, after an exciting and thrilling opening half to the Contender Series season, we are back once again with another round of this championship. This time from Circuit Zolder, it's the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. And it's Paul Smith and Arjuna Kankapati behind the microphones here. And Arjuna, one half of the season down. Now we get to the business end of this championship.
And I think there's already some drivers realizing their chance of Super Cup glory for 2025 starting to slip away. So today, they've got no choice. They've got to deliver pressure on in qualifying to be up towards the front. We know there's always some games being played in qualifying to get the tires exactly where they need to be. Got to make sure you got that dialed in for here today.
Absolutely, you certainly do. Let's take a look at the format of this series. It started off with the qualifying series earlier this summer. The top 15 from that then qualified for this series, along with the bottom 15 from this year's Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. After the 6 weeks that we compete here today, this Contender Series season, should I say, then the top 15 will be eligible for qualification for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup of 2025. There are additional slots for drivers from various Porsche markets. Good to see those drivers in the series as well. The point system here, Arjuna, it really is focused towards that main feature race, but you can still get yourself some good points through qualifying in the sprint.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about the Contender Series is it introduces drivers from the qualifying series to this format. Qualifying series is simple. There's a qualifying session and the race. As easy as you'd like. This is where you have to start thinking about those extra things that make up the Super Cup, and so it's always quite intriguing to figure out how drivers work their way through all of that madness, because theoretically, qualifying on pole, finishing first in the sprint race, but 8th in the feature race pays out less points than qualifying 8th, finishing 8th, but then first in the feature. So all sorts of weird things that you got to think about.
Yeah, you got to look at the connotations of how things go throughout your day, and those are the points, and here's the point standings as things are right now. We don't focus too much on the leading of the championship. That's Tristan Iglesias and Michael Journey with Lionel Labigra in 3rd place, the only red line driver on the grid. But it's down towards the bottom of the top 10, and then here, 15th spot. That is the crucial spot that you want to be in. Right now, it's close between Matteo, Sarika, Collins, Sipola, Maciejewski and Beckham Jasia. That's quite tight there, but look who's there in 20th place. Dane Warren, he needs a good week.
Absolutely. He started off the season not badly, but the last 2 rounds have not fallen in his favor, and so has got to deliver today. He's one of those drivers, as I mentioned, who might be seeing the hopes of Super Cup glory slip through their fingers, so has to make sure that they dial themselves in for here today as we get ready to go from Circuit Zolder. A really interesting track, I think, for the drivers to take their challenges to.
Yeah, here is the calendar then. We started off on the Algarve just a few weeks ago towards the end of September. Okayama and the completely flooded track there for the second week. Then last week it was WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca. Today, Circuit Zolder Grand Prix. Sachsenring, that'll be an intriguing round next time out, just a week's time, and then Spa-Francorchamps to finish off the season. And well, we're here at Circuit Zolder. Why not have one of our drivers, Will Chadwick, a race winner from Okayama, take us through a lap here.
Hello and welcome to this lap guide for the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series Round 4 at Zolder. My name's William Chadwick and I'm driving the Hymo Setups Porsche 992 Cup car. You're going to watch me go on a flying lap and comment over kind of some of the things that you need to watch out for here at this very tricky Zolder circuit. So you join me here at the Zolder Grand Prix circuit, newly remastered for Season 4 of 2024 here on iRacing. And we're going to do round number 4 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series around this very venue. I'm going to talk you through some of the tips and tricks us drivers use to generate as much lap time here as possible. Down to turn number 1, you want to be making sure that you brake nice and early and get over that inside curb. That wasn't done too well by myself, but it'll do for now. Turn number 2, you want to make sure that you're going as close as possible, but getting a really good exit. Super, super important to get a good exit out of 2 as you keep it tight round turn number 3 and head into turn number 4. Turn number 4 is a bit of a tricky one. The balance is always quite tricky here of the car, but you just want to be careful of that off track on the exit. As we head into turn number 5, a bit of a lottery all the time that we go through this corner, but we want to clip a bit of the inside curb, a lot of the outside curb, and just try and get the best flight over that curb as possible. Into sector 3, we can grab some of the inside, some of the outside anti-cuts here, but not too much, or you are partial to getting a slowdown. Do that the best we can. Thankfully, we don't get a slowdown. Control the power through the rest of this section, and this corner is just about flat if you can just about manage it. Down to turn number 8, again, brake pretty early, keep nice and tight to the inside, stay in second gear, always works best for me, focus on your exit, and down to the final corner complex. Going to be just focusing, keeping the car nice and maximized to the outside of the circuit here, again, braking early, getting over these inside anti-cuts, through the last corner anti-cuts, balancing the power on the exit, and there you are, completing a lap of the Zolder Grand Prix circuit. Thank you for joining me there for this, and hopefully you're going to have a good broadcast with your beautiful commentary team of Arjuna and Paul.
Well, that's the first time I've been called beautiful in a long time. Yes, so thank you very much to William Chadwick there, giving us a little bit of an insider scoop as to how to go around this track. And well, the thing that stands out for me is how brutal that first chicane is. You've got to get that absolutely spot on or you're getting spat out to the side.
And we talked about it last week, right? The probability that we're going to see side by side through there, and so how you navigate the first lap's going to be important, but the subsequent laps as well. When you choose the tango, going to be very crucial, knowing that a battle through there could cost you a second or two. And short races, you're not going to have much time to make that up, Paul. And so as we get ready to go for qualifying, the one lap pressure is on once again. I can't wait to see who delivers this time out.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't expect any wet weather here today. We've got a nice dry track for the entirety of the session. 2 drivers we're focusing on. First of all, Bryn Collins. He's really been sort of up and down on the results in the first 3 rounds of the championship. He'll be looking for another good solid points haul to secure his place in top 15, won't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see hands at work trying to build up his temperature in the tires right now. This is the thing that we always talk about with drivers, trying to nail it. And you can see there, Bryn's clearly not happy with how things have gone, and so he's reset back to pit lane. And so we'll see how he tries to build this up once again. Fortunately, I will say this, pit exit, it's a treacherous situation to deal with in a race situation. And we're seeing just how difficult it can be warming up the tires as well. Games at play.
Matti Sipilä, this is another driver who's got a little bit of pressure on him. Of course, very experienced in the full Super Cup series, wanting to get himself back in, but he's been getting caught up in a few incidents in the earlier rounds of this championship. He's looking for a good result again in that Sontag racing car.
Yeah, and we'll gonna just focus on consistency for drivers like this who don't have teammates necessarily to help them out, right, and play a bit of defense. He's got to just be there and about every single time, and so that's what I think we'll end up seeing from Matty, who's been doing plenty of stuff across the sim racing universe this year, but able to focus in a little bit more on iRacing and this Contender series as the year draws to a close. Paul, it's quite crazy. It's October. We'll be back to kick off the Super Cup in a couple of months' time.
Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? It's fantastic, and it doesn't give these drivers a whole lot of time to get themselves prepared for the championship. Here we are then, on board with Sipila. And let's see him take a hot lap. Remember, only one flying lap for these drivers. Make one tiny mistake, or like clipping that curb on the inside of turn 1, and that will potentially cost you a couple of tenths of a second.
And now maximizing the entry into this middle sector, and you got to be brave. This is still early in the lap, but got to make sure you maximize it. You don't want to leave hundreds, thousands on the table when we know just how crucial that can be. Just saw Heuer and Lebigra back in pit lane, so I think another driver that at this time is just trying to mind a little bit of, oh, look how much he bounces over the curb there, front end entirely in the air. But this warm-up seems to be so crucial for the drivers. They don't want to go onto their one lap unless they're ready. Watch the precision through this chicane here as well, because you can get penalties on either side of the track if you go a little bit too wide and fall foul of track limits. But Sipila runs it pretty perfectly there and swings his way now into this final hairpin where you want to set up on the left-hand side, brake in a straight line, and pull flat curb on the inside, use it to rotate the car and spit you down to the final corner.
Yeah, through the Boulderberg hairpin, through Jochenring curve, and then heading towards the Jackie X chicane at the end of the lap. Or hard onto the brakes, through the left, through the right. Get on the loud pedal. We'll start seeing those times coming in. Dane Warren, oh, Sipila, oh, he's not happy with that at all. That lap across the line, he comes. And that puts him currently 10th at the moment as more times come in. Dane Warren currently on pole position provisionally ahead of Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. Daniel Pashtor, I think that's his highest qualifying spot so far this season if he can hold on to it in 4th place. Pascal Costa still on an out lap here, so he's getting himself prepared for another flying lap. But we saw Sipila really not happy with that lap.
And I think I know why. 7/10 off. That's not ideal. And you point out Daniel Pastor, you're right, has not had the best of the qualifying efforts this season, but really delivering when I think he wants to as the season winds its way down. Now, Pascal Costa, see William Chadwick up to 5th position. He now knows what the benchmarks are from the rest of the drivers, so he can kind of push to the limit that he knows, right? If he knows that he's capable of doing a 29.4 without putting too much time into the car, that's pretty comfortable right now. Other thing that I noticed, Paul, a lot of times, you see drivers have, the headphones over their ear or whatnot. Pascal Costa, one of the few drivers with the in-ear sort of a headphones, which is quite interesting. I always highlight differences in setups with different teams and drivers because everyone's found their own way of going fast. There are no rigs in the series that are identical, except the Coanda teammates that live in the Coanda house, of course.
Well, yes, of course. I know that some of those Coanda drivers who are at Go now, they use in-ear monitors as well, so they get moulded to their ears. It's to make sure you have absolutely no distractions whatsoever from outside. Michael Gianni, Leo Gariboli have both received black flags during qualifying, so they are not able to set qualifying lap times here. So obviously something's happened to those two during this session. That's not caused them. And again, Pascal Costa not happy with the lap, comes across the line. And what does that do timing-wise? That puts him 14th right now. Florian Lebigra coming across the line. And what will he do? He's another one who's not set a lap time here.
And remember, he was one that went back into pit lane trying to get the warm-up correct. And that lap would have only put him, just on the edge of the top 10. It wasn't a spectacular lap by any means, but it's quite remarkable, Paul, how many drivers have fallen foul of, I'm guessing, the high curbs here. 21 drivers with times on the board, and only Simona Miramarceno is still out there in his grid and go number 5 to potentially set a lap time. And so 8 drivers, count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's how many drivers are starting at the back with no time on the board.
Going to be a busy old back of the grid, and I'll tell you what as well, it's not the easiest track to overtake at, is this either, is it? So if ever there was a track not to set yourself at the back of the grid, it's somewhere like this.
I think there's 2 ways to look at it though, right? Because I agree with you in many ways, but I've done my fair share of racing here. Jimmy Broadbent's 23-hour race in particular. Me and Lewis did that in a car together. He likes to remind me of how much I crashed in that race. But a lot of people crashed in that race because it's a tight and a twisty track, and there's subtle hidden elevation changes that you've got to really keep an eye on. So I think if you're at the back, stay out of trouble. You might still be in with a decent chance. If you're in the top 15 or so, you're in the danger zone though, and that 8th position, the inverted top 8, that's what everyone's looking for in the sprint race. I think Marceno's going to be fuming about this lap.
Yeah, that's not a good lap time at all for him. Down in 21st place, he set his time. I'll tell you how much of a tricky track this is. I've gone and rolled a Kia Optima live on broadcast here before, so it's a difficult track to race at. There's Dame Warren then. He's got a lot of hard work ahead of him, but he's starting from the best place possible. Pole position for the Australian. And as that qualifying time clock down to 0, we'll soon be able to give you your starting grid here. Quite a few names at the back of that grid, as Arjuna points out, that are going to have a bit of work on their hands then. So, as the drivers take themselves to the starting grid, let's run you through it. And it's a Contender Esports 1, 2, 3 for Warren, Rogers and De Jong. Daniel Pashto for Williams Esports starting on the 2nd row alongside De Jong. William Chadwick and Tristan Iglesias find themselves on row number 3. Julian Sonnen and Morena Matsarika then on the 4th row of the grid with Daniel Savini and Xander Reed, 5th row of the grid. Beckham Jasia and Nicolas Mateo, row number 6 for those two. Matti Sipala, we saw his lap on board. Alongside him, Pascal Costa on row the 7th row of the grid. Luis Belike and Roger Christensen on row number 8 with Rafael Silva and Bobby Zelensky, 9th row of the grid. Row 10 for Andrew Caron with Quentin Violate alongside him. Simone Marceno and Chunye Zhang rounds out the drivers who have set a lap time on row number 11, and then the rest, Florian Lebigre, Jakub Maciejewski on row number 12, 13th row Michael Jani, Carlos Fornelosa, Elliot Veyron, Oscar Pai, Leo Gariboli and Bryn Collins all the way at the back of this 30-car grid. We've got about 36 seconds left, Arjuna. Thoughts going into this first race? It's all about getting a good start for Dame Warren and then just keeping it in front.
I think inside of that top 8, most drivers are comfortable in their championship situation, with the exception of Dane. So in these cool, cloudy conditions, he's got to deliver. He can't afford a mistake. Also very impressed by Daniel Savini. Just wanted to highlight that. 9th position. Remember, that cutoff, right? Inverted top 8 for the feature. He's in a great position. Will Chadwick, you called out his win in round 2. Savini could try and replicate that. Watch out for him. Can't wait to see what he's got in store for us.
Yeah, certainly going to be an intriguing round of the championship. Right, drivers are set. The engine revs rise here. It's a long hold, but the sprint race is underway here, and it's a great launch from Dame Warren on pole position. His teammates fall in behind, and there's Pashto. Oh, Savini! Savini's around. He's off into the gravel. There's a Contender car involved in all of that. And oh my goodness, from the start all the way down to the back of the field for Savini. That is a nightmare for him. As we go through towards turn number 3 now, onto this back straight, heading towards that chicane. It is Warren, Rogers, De Jong, Pastor ahead of Iglesias. Chadwick's down a place. Beckham Josiah up to 7th from 11th on the grid. He's ahead of Matti Sipler as well. So big changes in the top 8.
Well, I said watch Daniel Savini. He said watch me and took Julian Sonnen and Moreno Sorica with him, unfortunately. And so off to the chicane for the first time of asking, as they were inside of the top 4 behind, like you say, some big movers taking advantage of chaos as I expected. But single file off to the hairpin at the end of the lap for the first time, and only a 9-lap race. And these aren't long laps by any means. This race is going to be over sooner rather than later. So 12 minutes from now, we'll know if Dane Warren can hold up at the front of the field. We'll also know, can Matti Sipler, who we watched in qualifying, be very, very frustrated? Can he hold on to the 8th position and find himself on pole for the feature race? You've got to be in the position to take advantage of any errors and any issues that happen in front of you. Warren's got about a 0.3 of a second lead over Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong. And then it's Pastor, Iglesias, Chadwick, and going on the defensive there actually is Beckham Josiah, because Matti Sipler is not satisfied with just 8th place. He wants to move up. He wants to score more points here. Get close between the two of them to go onto this back straight, and no move being made for the time being. But Sipler's is showing he means business here. I think he's got to remember potentially that finishing first in the feature race is so important in terms of points. Oh, look how much front end and lift they get jumping over the curve. That's the aftermath of the initial send from Daniel Savini. This replay from up above will show a bit more. He slightly overcommits on the brake, also slightly jinks to the right a bit more than I think he should have. And so from there, barrels first into Sorica. They take with them Julian Sonnen, 1, 2, 3, off into the kiddie litter. It's when it goes wrong here in this series. There's still Sipler side by side with Josiah, and he's got a good run out of the Boulderberg hairpin. Neck and neck, almost rubbing door mirrors as they go into the Jackie X chicane. And still contact between the two of them. You can almost see that happening. And Sipler drops down the order as the rest of the field come thundering past. Beckham Josiah down to 11th. Shake of the head there, but who didn't leave the space there? That's the question. It's really kicked off chaos in front of them as well, because it's now just bunched up a whole bunch of cars. Florian Lebiger has dropped back because I think he was on the outside of this entire sequence, cycling out through this long right-hander up towards this short run to the chicane. But Paul, what we were saying, Matti Sipler might want to think about if it was worth fighting that much, and so he's gone from being in the Catberg seat to now having to fight his way back forward from 23rd, out of the points in the sprint race. And I'll take a look at this from up above. It will just show the dangers of trying to fight wheel to wheel. They went wheel to wheel through the chicane, and guess what? Bobby Zelensky has paid the price and taken, I think, another car with him as well. Yeah, I've seen Bobby Zelensky's name dropping down the order, and I think one of the Apex Academy cars was involved in that potentially. As we go back to live pictures then. So, still fighting going on here. And Nicholas Matteo finds himself inside the top 8 now, in that pound seat. And it's the rest that are all trying to get in there. Beckham Josiah will be trying to get back in after dropping down the order. But you look at this, Florian Lebiger neck and neck with Elliot Veyron. These are two drivers coming from the rear of the grid. And it's Veyron who's got the outside line into turn number 1, into Erster. And you can hold the speed around the outside there. That gives you the inside for the next 2 corners. And that's Veyron through. That's 13 positions now gained for him as well. So a rather remarkable climb. And that's what I was saying, the danger of not putting in a qualifying time here. Through all the chaos, you can make up a decent amount of positions. So Veyron, who started second in the IndyCar Pro Series race at Barber on Thursday, dropped backwards, unfortunately, showing a little bit more speed and long run potential over the course of this race as we ride on board with Michael Gianni as he Just the lines through that chicane, you can see that Johnny did not get it right and was going wrong very early, had to slightly adjust to avoid a slowdown, and look at the margin that's built up in front of him as a result, and such a quick mistake as well.
And it's so simple to do, just a few inches the wrong side of that curb and you're getting spat out, and yeah, you can see Johnny's not quite comfortable here on this lap as they go into that higher pin towards the end of the lap, then onto the power through the Jochen Rindt chicane, absolutely flat out in these cars, and then into the Jackie Ick chicane at the end of the lap. Across the line they go. We're into the second half of the race now, lap 5 of 9, and it's still Warren just ahead of Rogers, but Rogers has closed back up to Dane Warren. Sensible hat on, and we've not seen much sensible hat racing going on Arjuna. A sensible hat on, if I'm Rogers, I just sit behind.
Yeah, you're not expecting that, especially knowing that Daniel Pastor is a couple of car lengths off the back of Mitchell de Jong, who's not necessarily the closest up to these two. The problem is one mistake over the chicane, and you don't really have a choice. Rogers presented an opportunity, and well, Countryman switched around, and the 92 now leads the 57.
Well, we're used to seeing Josh Rogers winning sprint races in Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup, usually from pole position. Okay, it's a gain of 1 place for him here, but certainly I don't think Dane Warren will be too happy with himself making that mistake. But he shouldn't feel under too much pressure at the moment, because, as you say, he's got Mitchell de Jong behind him, and then he's got Daniel Pastor is about half a second back from de Jong right now, so they're not under the most pressure. As we look further back at Luis Palique, this is the Apex Academy car I was talking about.
Ooh, and you can see he's already all 4 wheels off the ground there, and Bobby Zalenski, slightly separate issue, but gets caught up as a result of that, trying to avoid it as well, and so self-inflicted mistake it would seem, but rather costly, and so bang, unfortunate there. And I do wonder if this is a track that suits some drivers' driving styles a bit more. Elliot Veyron looks up the inside of Andrew Carone, the Canadian, who is now robbed of 14th position, and he might have to watch in his rearview mirrors as the setup now builds. Michael Jarny as well, Jakub Maciejewski, Oscar Pai, they're all stacking up to the inside of the World Sim Racing Esports car, and Carone's bleeding positions down outside of the top 15.
This is the problem with this track, is if you end up offline, you get freight trains, you can just get one after the other cars coming through, although he's fought back there. Maciejewski to the inside, and he's actually going to gain the place instead. So ahead of Michael Jarny, Jarny's lost the place here. Maciejewski right in front, purple wheels and all, onto the brakes, into the Villeneuve chicane, and through the go, and that means that Jarny losing another place out there on track. As we go on, we're heading towards the final few laps of this race. Quentin Violate, I see, has gone off on my timing screen. He's all the way down. In fact, he's taken a turn back to the pit lane. His sprint race is done. That's somebody that I've been surprised by here, Arjuna, in this Contender series. Quentin Violate is either not been involved in that top 10 fight, or if he has, he's been involved in some incidents.
Well, I think it reflects the split focus for him this year, of course, getting the chance to go and do some real-world rallying. Now, that's not self-inflicted, though. That's escorted. That's the nice way of putting it. Simone Miramarceno forces Quentin Violate a bit wide. He then gets a slowdown for the pain, and so I think after all of that, drops to the tail end of the field and says, you know what, we're done. But yeah, he's had this opportunity this year, Paul, to go and do some rallying, which is really cool to see. He's been enjoying it, having some great results as well. I think even winning the championship in his class, if I'm not mistaken. But now he's got to come back to the sim world, change gears a little bit more, and slightly different to someone like Mitchell de Jong, right, who's gone over and stepped over to Nitro Cross and leading the championship there in Next E. Mitchell's doing it a little bit better right now, straddling those two worlds. We'll see Quentin, I'm sure, click back into gear at some point as the winter rolls through.
Yeah, you know, it's form is temporary, class is permanent, and you will see Quentin back up there. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you there. Now, Rafael Silva, we're on board with right now, is in 12th place behind Pascal Costa. Costa was never in any danger of hitting the apex of Boulderberg then on this lap, but stays ahead. You can see the damage to the rear of Costa's car as well. Some wounded cars out there from what's been happening in these races. 2 to go here for the leaders, and Florian Lebigra from nowhere down the inside into turn 1 says, oh, thank you very much, Rafael.
And remember, he's third in the championship coming into this race, 4 points off for Michael Gianni and Tristan Iglesias, so he's just trying to consolidate his position at the end of the day. Has not necessarily always delivered in qualifying. I think once again, unfortunately for him, remember 23rd was where he started, has gained 11 spots, but he's not going to take advantage, at least it would seem, of the inverted top 8. That's going to go the way of Nicolas Mateu, who comes into this race, Paul, you called him out, 13th in points as they go flying over the curbs once more. Pascal Costa gets it wrong. Silva's going to lose out to Veyron, but Mateu's in a great spot going into the main event here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, right in that pound seat, right in that transfer spot, as there's the live standings atop 10 on the right hand side of your screen as it stands right now, but it's that top 15, and look who's back up into the top 15. It's Dane Warren finding himself up there at the expense of Bryn Collins, actually. So Dane's moving up, Bryn Collins moving down.
Yeah, I mean, these margins, Paul, we're talking 5 points between 14th and 17th. The benefit here, and we've called it out a couple of times so far this season, there is the likelihood that a couple of drivers do not return to the Super Cup, and so maybe a couple more drivers outside the top 15 get the call up, but that's an uncomfortable place to be in heading off to Christmas. You'd rather give yourself the Christmas gift of a Super Cup spot for 2025 rather than waiting for someone to give you the news that you have been gifted the chance because someone else is no longer joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Chunya Zhang is just having to serve a drive-through penalty. Got a black flag, so having a drive-through. But we're on the last lap of this sprint race then, and the racing has been intense all the way through this field. But at the front, Josh Rogers, as soon as he's got ahead of Dane Warren, has just been able to slowly eke out the gap at the front, ahead of Warren and De Jong. Daniel Pastor has been able to stay in 4th place for the time being, ahead of Iglesias, Chadwick, Reed, and Nicolas Mateo, who's got about an 0.8 of a second lead over Beckham Jasiah. That's the pound seat to get that inverted reverse grid draw. Into the final chicane then, and there he is, Josh Rogers, behind the wheel, and former champion, 2021 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup champion, takes a sprint race win here in this race at Zolder. Rest of the drivers gonna come through across the line. Importantly, as pointed out by Arjuna earlier, Nicolas Mateo finds himself pole position with that inverted finishing spot grid change, and so he'll be delighted to be starting on pole position for the main race. Rest of them coming through right now. Just a couple more drivers. Matti Sipila, down in 28th then for him after that incident between him and Beckham Jasiah. I think there'll be a few conversations to be had after that. Well, there is your results, provisional race results from this sprint race of round number 4 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. It's Rogers, Warren, De Jong, it's Commander 1, 2, 3 ahead of Daniel Pastor and Tristan Iglesias. William Chadwick finishes in 6th ahead of Xander Reed. Nicolas Mateo finds himself a Drago Racing on pole position for the main race. Beckham Jasiah and Roger Christensen round out your top 10. Florian Lebigra, good hard charge up through the field to finish 11th ahead of Pascal Costa. Elliot Veyron, another one that had to charge through the field in 13th ahead of Rafael Silva. Andrew Caron and Jakub Makiewski, then the next 2 drivers were Michael Gianni, Carlos Fenolosa, Oscar Pai and Bobby Zelensky, the last of the point scorers. Julian Sonin just outside those points ahead of Leo Gariboli, Marina Sarica, Simone Maria Marcheno, Bryn Collins way down the order. He won't be happy with that, ahead of Luis Belique. Denis Savini, who was involved in that incident at turn 1, lap 1. Chunye Zhang served a penalty, finishes 28th ahead of Matti Sippola, and Quentin Violate does not finish the race. So that is the sprint race done and dusted there, and well, a bit of chaos, bit of carnage, but there was plenty of action in that one as well.
Absolutely, and a really interesting one, knowing that got 2 races left after this, 2 events, I should say, 4 races, and a couple of drivers missing in action today. Aaron Vasquez, Elvis Rankin, 2 drivers in a very different situation as well, right? Aaron Vasquez is tied for 20th, outside looking in. Elvis Rankin's in 6th. They're both racing in the FIA F4 Esports Global Championship today, Paul. And so that's going to make it really interesting, right, going into that final couple of weeks. We know Elvis had a bit of a disappointing round at Laguna Seca, all things considered. He was on a lap that he says was good enough for pole position, but went off track and found himself at the very back instead. Is he going to regret that choice? So many things still to think about, but I think going into this next race at Zolder, there are drivers like Nicolas Matteo thinking positively. On the other side of that equation, Moreno Sorica, right? He would have been in a great position, except he got taken out into turn number 1. He's got some fighting still left to do.
Yeah, and it's those drivers that are outside looking in that are just seeing the sands of time passing by and just seeing opportunities going by them. It becomes more and more difficult, becomes more and more desperate. Whereas for those drivers who are in looking at those out, it's all about weighing up the percentages. It's, as you said, with Sippola, didn't really need to make that move on Josiah, did he?
Well, maybe he felt that he did at that phase of the race, right? There was still some laps left to go, but yeah, I think he'll regret that. He'll regret that move in some ways, unless he's able to now fight back, right? That's the thing that all great racing drivers need to be able to do, is sometimes you'll find yourself in hard situations. It's the bounce back, the fight back, right? And I think that's what we're going to see for. Remember, Josh Rogers had a bit of a stinker in qualifying a couple of rounds ago. Bounced back very well from that. Now what will Sippola do with a longer race as well starting to come up?
Yeah, absolutely. The ability to have bounce back ability is key to one of these drivers here today. I mentioned about Matteo. We've mentioned about Xander Reed. I think was another one. Started in 10th place, ends up in 7th, taking opportunities that were handed to him. But Florian Lebigra and Elliot Veyron, tremendous charges through the field. Okay, yeah, they had people help them out along the way, but still, great efforts from those two to get themselves some decent points in that sprint race.
It becomes more difficult to pass the further up through the field you get, so won't be able to replicate the double-digit sort of moves, and you know, at least you'd expect that. But they will be thinking, you know, there's a solid top 10 finish on the cards for the both of them. Solid points as well. We've called out that the feature race pays out more points than the sprint race as well. Pays out points all the way down to 25th. So majority of the drivers, I think there's only about 4 drivers who are going to miss out on some semblance of points here today. And going into Sachsenring next week, Paul, which I've never commentated there before. Nope. I wager drivers have never raced there in a competitive field before. There's so many unknowns. The final race at Spa we know all about, but you don't want to head into that penultimate round knowing nothing about what you're in store for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about taking the opportunities and getting the prizes while you can, and not leaving it to a bit of outside hope as well. You've got to control the controllables, as great sports coaches say throughout the world. And you've just got to control what you do and not worry about things that happen around you. We're getting ready for the start of the next race. Drivers have had 5 minutes just to prepare for this main race. What's the key here? It's quite cool, is the track. I don't think tyre preservation is quite as needed here.
Well, yes and no, because you need to be careful not to overheat the tires, because then suddenly you'll find yourself missing more apexes. So there's that balance that you're trying to strike. And I guess you're also trying to figure out slightly longer race. You mentioned Chunye Zhang came down to serve as penalty, drive through. Are we going to see any other drivers risking that? They were going a bit wild over the chicane, risking the incidents. Nicolas Matteo, though, at the front. What can he do as he gets ready to drop the hammer?
Well, drivers will head themselves to the grid then, and let's take a look at that one. The top 8 inverted from the results of the sprint race, so it's Nicholas Matteo for Drago Racing, alongside him, Xander Reed for Coanda. And it's the Hymo setups driver of William Chadwick and Coanda, driver of Tristan Iglesias. Daniel Pashtor from Williams Esports, and Mitchell de Jong of Coanda Esports, rounding out row number 3. Fourth row, it's the front 2 from the sprint race, so Dane Warren and Josh Rogers, and then the drivers start where they finished in the sprint race. So Beckham Chassis at 9th, alongside him, Roger Christensen, Florian Lebigra and Pascal Costa, then on row number 6. 7th row of the grid is Elliot Veyron and Rafael Silva, with Andrew Caron and Jakub Maciejewski on row number 8. The 9th row is Michael Jarney and Carlos Fenolosa. Row 10, Oscar Pye and Bob Zelensky. What can they do from there? Julian Sonin will be looking for some good points along with Leo Gariboli on row number 11. 12th row, Marina Sarica and Simone Marcheno, their former teammates, starting alongside each other. Bryn Collins and Lewis Belike on the next row, ahead Daniel Savini and Matti Sipola. Last row of the grid, Chunye San and Quentin Violate, who I do not believe will be taking the race start. I believe he's been having a few connection problems with his internet, so will not be taking the start here. 30 seconds before this one then. I'm going to call this, it's going to be Mateo's today. I really have a good feeling about this, Arjuna.
It's going to be very interesting off the start. I think there are some drivers that need some points, right? Dane Warren's not going to be comfortable settling for 7th. He's got to charge his way forward. Daniel Pashtor's probably just happy to be up inside of the top 5. And then what about some of those drivers just on the outside looking in? The Veyrons, the Lebigras. They're going to be looking and hoping to try and take advantage of chaos in front of them with 18 laps ready to go.
Engine revs up. Drivers set.
Green flag, green flag.
And we are green flag racing here in the Contender Series main race, and straight away Xander Reed feeling the need to go defensive on William Chadwick into turn number 1 between the two of them. Great start from Mateo. Oh, Maciejewski's off into the gravel trap, but we stay at the front right now. Chadwick's going to get caught out here by Iglesias if he's not careful, and they sort themselves out. So Chadwick in 3rd ahead of Tristan Iglesias in 4th. But Mateo ahead of Xander Reed. Further down the order, Julian Sonin and Carlos Fenolosa, they've dropped down the order as well. And a little bit of darting about heading into this first chicane. Let's see how they clatter over it. Beckham just here with a squeeze on Christensen. Florian Lebigra launching over that curb.
They were very careful not to be side by side through there, and so do get Konstantined up, yes, but they all survive. That's the important thing. So Jakub Maciejewski out of this race. Paul mentioned Quintin Violate also not taking the start. We're down to the 28 that are still out there and running.
Oh.
And there's the chaos. Leo Gariboli, Julian Sonnen. I can see Sipola stricken there as well for a second. Chunye Zan. 5 or so cars tangled up.
Oh, it's an absolute nightmare. Gariboli's got a mechanical meatball warning flag, so that's going to be his race done as well. So, in fact, Chunye Zan as well, another one with that mechanical warning flag. So that's his race done as well. It's been a difficult season, but I think it's been a really good sort of learning curve for Chunye Zan, hasn't it? For him to come in from that Chinese market and really try and see how he steps up against some of these top drivers.
Yeah, and you know, Andrew Caron's one of those other drivers that we've seen in some other series around the sim racing world show some speed, much like Chunye Zan. But the Contender Series is where we're seeing, right, that mix of drivers from the Super Cup have been at that level already. And some drivers who have come to the Contender Series on a couple of occasions, like Will Chadwick, for example, and have taken their time to figure out their groove, their rhythm. And so that's been important to see. I think he may come back next year and be even stronger, right? Look at Chadwick in a very strong position to get to 2025. And he's one of those drivers that, for 2 now consecutive years, has joined the Contender Series from the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup, Great Britain.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been great to see drivers grow throughout this series' history. Florian Lebigra was side by side with Roger Christensen through the Villeneuve chicane, and Lebigra's off into the tyre barrier. Oh, who was that he made contact with? I think it might have been Michael Jarney. And that's Lebigra's race done. That engine is toast. He's going to be taking a tour back to pit road.
Well, he was a bit aggressive into the chicane, if we're being honest. Let's first take a look at what happened in the ping pong with Leo Gariboli, and they were 3 wide behind, and 3 into 1 never works out, and as they slowly just slide into the path there, yeah, Gariboli's car a bit too much damage, unfortunately. So here's what happens to Lebigra, except this is, I think, still with the clean car. We'll get back to that when we can, but I think he self-instigates that, Paul, by going deep at the chicane, allowing Michael Gianni to get side by side, and then from there, you're always at risk. And here we go, you'll just see Gianni's having to try and turn in, and Lebigra's a bit glued to him, and off into the wall he goes.
Lebigra will say, well, Michael, you could have got off the loud pedal. Michael will turn around and say, you could have given me more space. I think that's 2 into 1 does not go, and it shows. And that could have big connotations for Florian if he's not careful. Dane Warren moving up a place into 6th place now for the Australian. And is this a case of Contender Esports trying to work together and get Dane up there into the bigger points paying positions to try and get him into contender qualifying spots for next year's Super Cup? Here's Paco Costa's view. You can see then through the right-hander, and yeah, just Lebigra, and it wasn't Gianni actually who made contact. I think it was Veyron. So apologies to Gianni, it was Veyron who had the contact with Lebigra.
Either way, Lebigra's the one that pays the price, and well, fortunately for him, he is relatively comfortable. Remember, 3rd in points coming into the evening, so at least is going to leave Zolder with his top 15 chances probably relatively unchanged. There you can see, top right, the update as it sits right now would be around 50 points off for the leaders. Rogers Iglesias split by 1. You'd assume they're pretty comfortable with 2 to go. That cut line battle, though, it's 1 between Sonnen and Jasir, has started to see the gap stretch out to some of the rest of the drivers, including Sarika, Collins, Christensen, and Maciejewski.
Yeah, those that were pretty close together, covered by about 10-15 points coming into this week now. It's starting to just spread that bit again, launching the cars over the chicane there. Mitchell de Jong, one of those. And I know he's used to taking to jumps in the Nitro RX, but I don't think you're supposed to do that in a Porsche Cup car, though.
Well, no, they just need to make the Porsche Cup car Dakar version. That's all that we need as we jump on board with Beckham Jasir, who, after missing the first round of the championship, I tell you what, it's results like this that are going to give him a chance of still making it into that top 15. Into this round was about 20 points adrift of that cut line or so. And 2 top 10 finishes would be a very good result. I think the problem right now is you've got Rogers, de Jong, Warren in front. These are not drivers that A, you're expecting to pass necessarily, because you're probably on their pace, but you're B, not expecting a mistake from them, Paul, because there's 4, purple and orange cars in a line, and much like you were saying with Warren leading, you're not expecting any of these teammates to push the pace on their teammates.
I mean, I don't see Iglesias sort of moving over for Dane, but I suppose that he's just trying to drag those guys along with Daniel Pashto and Will Chadwick in front of him. Still Nicholas Matteo in the lead of this race, half a second between him and Xander Reed. Will Chadwick 3rd ahead of Daniel Pashto. And you see all those teams, it's Drago Racing. Great to see them up at the front. Matteo was one of those drivers who seemed to really excel in the, let's be honest, the washout of the race at Okayama, but it was then somebody else's mistake that ended up costing him a really good result. So hopefully he can hold on to that third, because I do think that Nicholas would be deserving of a win here.
It's a win that will boost his confidence as well, right? Sometimes you just need these results to help give you that spark that, you know, you can deliver in these situations. You can fend off the charges of a Rogers or whatever. And so we'll see what this does to his mindset as well. You know, Drago are iRacing World Champions last year. They've won iRacing special events aplenty at this point now. And so for them, they're just looking to get to that next level, which is consistently being at the top level of every series and winning across of those series as well. So, you know, with the likes of Matteo joining the mix of some of the other drivers that they've got in the series as well, it bodes very well for them, Paul, that they're getting strong as this year comes to an end.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just see nice and calm expression from Matteo coming through, up and over the chicane. And look at that though, getting closed right up. Was that a slowdown? Was it just taking the chicane wrong? Well, that's allowed Xander Reed to come right into this race. No move being made, and look at this queue of cars at the front of the field. It's 8 cars in a queue for the lead, less than 2.5 seconds covering this front 8.
Who is going to be the one to push the pace here, though? That's what I wonder, because Xander Reed's in the top 10 in points. He probably doesn't want to force something and drop himself down the order. Other thing to think about is you don't want to get involved in anything with race control, because that might end up seeing you get points penalties. And those, knowing how close that situation could be on the top 15, those are something you don't want to have to deal with. That is, by the way, the first time I've ever seen a sim racer with A, a hat on, but B, flipped in the opposite direction. I feel decidedly less cool than I did 10 seconds ago. Xander Reed rocking that look, I tell you.
I mean, I've seen a sim racer with a hat on before.
Have you?
Mitchell de Jong with his, when he had his certain energy drinks branding sponsorship. Yeah, I've seen him wearing that, but never backwards. Yeah.
Ooh, not bad.
Yeah, you see, it's when you've been around as much as me, Arjuna, trust me, you've seen a lot of things, including a Porsche going flying over the chicane. No time to check for the seatbelts being on there. Make sure that the T-tray in front of you is in the upright position. And, well, these drivers will be carrying on for... Well, we've not even reached the halfway point of this race, but Matteo keeping well under pressure from Reed, who's keeping well under pressure from Chadwick, has got Pashto behind him, Iglesias, Warren, de Jong and Rogers all together. One thing that's surprising me is Beckham Josiah, he's not really gaining on these drivers. He's a bit off the pace compared to these 8 at the front.
And we know that his teammate Daniel Pastor is quick enough, and it just goes to show sometimes you are struggling. This shows you, I mean, both of the front wheels are in the air at that point. There is no ifs or buts about it. They have no directional control at that point, right? You can't steer with the rear wheels. You're only steering with the front. So if you get the line wrong, you don't have the opportunity to correct it. And that's why that chicane is so difficult to master. But Paul, we're about to hit it for the 8th time this race, and after this lap, we'll still have 10 more trips through the chicane. Still a long, long way to go left in this race.
Yeah, and there's plenty of time for mistakes to happen. We've seen them happen. Just look at that. I mean, the other time we've seen these... Oh, Iglesias, slow down penalty. That allows Warren through. De Jong and Rogers through as well. Not the end of the world for Tristan, but it shows just get that line wrong through that chicane, and it's so easy to drop down the order. And so Iglesias goes from 5th to 8th. Meanwhile, you got the fight further down. That's the 83 of Bobby Zelensky and Marina Sarika. They're trying to work their way through the field. Gain of 3 positions for Bobby, 5 places for Marina. Daniel Savini's up 8 places now into 19th. There goes Sarika down the inside at Boulderberg. But they're still going to be side by side heading towards that Jackie X chicane. And we've seen what happens when people don't leave space here. Squeeze going on. Still leave space, and here comes Savini. This is a great opportunity for Daniel to come alongside. It's alongside Bobby Zelensky, and well, the rest are trying to follow him through here, Arjuna.
Yeah, and this is where Savini's probably kicking himself and trying to atone for his aggression and mistake into the opening corner in the sprint race. Got to watch the rearview mirrors as well, because behind got Carlos Fenalosa lurking up his inside. This is, though, why Zolder can produce some great racing. The subtle elevation changes really do mean in a car like this, with no ABS, no traction control, you are required to master every little nuance the track has to offer. One car into the gravel slightly, as I think Bobby Zelensky loses a little bit of momentum down to the chicane, but he's on the inside, will bully Carlos Fenalosa, who will now serve a slowdown as a result of this as well. So watch who can take advantage. Bryn Collins, Julian Sonnen, and Oscar Pye, 3 of the purple and orange, and Matty Siepola as well.
Do you know who else got a slowdown penalty and all that? Bobby Zelensky. So both of them, they were side by side, and both of them end up with a slowdown penalty. Bobby's still actually trying to serve that right now. That penalty, so he'll be hoping that it doesn't end up being a full-blown black flag as we head towards the end of the lap once again. Halfway point of the race, and well, it's as things were, as down the inside then goes Julian Sonnen. No move completed there, though. But as it was at the front, it's still Matteo, Reed, Chadwick and Pashto, your top 4. Dan Warren now up to 5th place. But Julian Sonnen, oh dear, it's been a difficult season for Julian here. 20th place right now, Bobby Zelensky in 19th ahead. And these drivers, the problem for them is ahead of Sarika, there's about 3.5 seconds to Simone Mania-Marchena.
Yeah, and you know, point situation wise for Sonnen, this is not ideal, right? Because he's in that bubble battle. He doesn't want to be there, but he is, unfortunately, so can't afford any sort of slip up right now. Did see that Mitchell de Jong got in front of Dane Warren, so that's 5th and 6th swapped around as clattering over the curves once again. I tell you, these drivers probably don't have cars that are factory conditioned, so they are probably having a little bit of adjustments here and there to their driving styles as around goes Fenalosa.
So easily done. Just lock up the rears, perhaps, just the slightest of contact whilst under braking, and that costs him big time. So down the order he goes. Oscar Pye is serving slowdown penalty, and behind them is Matty Siepola, of course, the driver trying to move up through the field. Back to the front. So it is still Nicholas Matteo in the lead, ahead of Xander Reed. Xander now looking ahead. He's got a little bit of a gap between him and Will Chadwick, so he can focus more on the race lead rather than focusing on defending that 2nd place. Here's a replay then. Fenalosa down the inside of Siepola. Oh, just the bounce of that curb, isn't it? Unsettled the car, and around it goes.
And sometimes you got to decide when it's worth fighting. Tell you what, Michael Johnny around the outside. Oh my word, take a bow. Roger Christensen, fair play to him as well for making that work between the two of them. But that took some gumption, that took some bravery to make it stick. And well, 10th position now goes the way of Michael Johnny. 5 seconds back from Beckham Jasir. 8 laps to go. Let's see what he can do.
That looked like one of the tackles that I saw from Wigan Warriors earlier this evening in the Super League Grand Final. As things stand right now, there's the 15th spot. Beckham Jasir is into that top 15, but only by a point over Oscar Pye. Morena Sarika then in 17th, ahead of Bryn Collins. So those two dropping out of that top thing. That's as things stand right now. If we were to get the results here, that's how things would be looking. And Dane Warren moving up to 12th place. A good haul of points for him so far, but he'll be hoping to just secure his place a bit more by moving forward maybe 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah, he just wants to, I think, also stay out of trouble, right? Because last thing he wants to do is drop himself back below that cut line. Oh, and look how close it is between a couple of these drivers. I think Sachsenring, we're not expecting rain for the rest of the season, but that is such an unpredictable track, I think, for us as well in the comms booth. So many of these tracks, these drivers have got so much muscle memory, right? At Spa, think about the thousands of laps that they would have done across of so many different cars. They know that track like the back of their hands. Sachsenring, they probably couldn't describe how it goes from turn one, right? So these are all things that they're going to have to do the laps over the course of the week, build up their speed and their confidence. And I think, Paul, that qualifying session is going to be one of the most interesting ones of this Contender series.
As we carry on, through we go, and wow, certainly great opportunity for. See, for me, Xander Reed does not need to actually force a move here. Just needs to just try and just get a good result, get some good points, and get himself a really good finish here in second place. I can actually tell you, Arjuna, I have commentated on one race at Sachsenring in the past on a different simulation, so I have commentated there, and you know what? It could produce some really good racing there, so I think these Porsches around there will be certainly good to see, as still, as we were, the front three, up over that curb again, and I tell you what, these cars would not be going back to the forecourt at the end of this race. They would be needing a full suspension rebuild, I would expect, and maybe even gearbox and drive shaft work as well.
These Commander drivers up front running okay. I think there's been a bit more of a slip up behind as we check in with Pascal Costa, who's now jumped in front of Rafael Silva with Veyron and Corone, Marcheno in the mix as well. This is the fight for 12th position. Marcheno's gained 8 spots in this race. Daniel Savini's gained 9, but no one's gained double digits, mainly because I think, Paul, outside, we've seen plenty of action, yes, but we haven't seen similar sorts of chaos like we saw in that sprint race, like the 3 cars getting tangled up at turn number 1. Yes, we've had Florian Labigra, Leo Gariboli, and Jakub Maciejewski get tangled up and now sitting in pit lane, but for the most part that all happened to the tail end of the field and didn't involve too many others.
Marcheno having to wipe the sweat off his brow. He's working hard here on this one, and as does the sim racers lean as well. He's another one who gives it the extreme sim racers lean into the corner. Simone, he's focused, he's dialed in right now, and you know, he is one of the most excitable drivers, and one of the greatest interviews I've ever done with a driver after he'd won a race. So he can be somebody who can get really excited, can pull out results. It's just it's not been consistent, and he's not been up there at the front to take advantage of the pace that he knows he has.
Sim racers lean. Does it help? Does it not help? I'm of the opinion it does help, but only if you think it helps. It's much like anything superstition. It helps if you believe that it helps. What's my superstition, Paul, is I always had to get into my rig in a very specific way. What was your superstition, or is your superstition?
Lucky flat cap.
So, is that a superstition thing, or is that a style thing? Come on.
It's not about style for me, that's for sure. There's only one reason why I wear a flat cap on broadcast, and that's called male pattern baldness. Trust me, it happens to the best of us. As we go across the line then to start another lap, Rafael Silva, 13th, under pressure from Elliot Veyron. Veyron, who's actually lost a place in this race so far. So what can he do? Can he try and get that position back? There is Elliot right now. Can he move forward? It's looking more and more difficult as the field spreads itself out a bit more. Yes, we've got that pack up at the front, but then you've got little sort of battle packs here and there further down the field. Oh my goodness!
Elliot Veyron gets it wrong. In front of him, Pascal Costa got it wrong as well. So Silva says thank you very much. Corone grabs 2. Marcheno slides through as well. I mean, late in this race, we're seeing the mental lapses, the judgment errors from some of these drivers. Every point is worth something for these contenders as well. Let's not forget, Paul, in their quest to get to the top 15 and reach that cut line.
if our producer is got a telepathic link with me, he knows exactly what I want to see. Super slow-mo of just how far up the back end of that car came up over the chicane. As you pointed out, it wasn't just Veyron, it was Costa as well who had the mistake through there. Huge moments. Luis Belique has a mechanical warning flag, so his day is pretty much done here in this race. If he can keep it going, Belique, then he can finish in 1 championship points scoring position. Dane Warren's just lost a position to Josh Rogers in this race.
That's interesting. He's clearly struggling the deeper into the race that we get, and maybe that's just a sign that's not quite figured out the tire management. Oh, and he's gone around. He'll hold on to a spot inside of the top 10 as here comes Michael Johnny. Roger Christensen might steal 10th away from Dane Warren. You can see the look on his face, though. Stone cold. He's not very happy with himself.
We said, didn't we, that just one little mistake through there and it will cost you and it will spit you out, and that's exactly what's happened to Bobby Zelensky. My goodness, in 2 laps we've seen 2 big key moments happen through that Kleiner chicane, and well, Dane Warren drops down the order, but still at the front it's Nicholas Matteo ahead of Xander Reed with Will Chadwick in 3rd, Daniel Pashta 4th ahead of Mitchell de Jong, Josh Rogers in 6th ahead of Tristan Iglesias, and Beckham Josiah has got towards the rear of this train, but it's taken him all race to get there.
And surely no changes between these drivers. They'll sit as they are. There's no real point to risking it, right, with 2 laps to go. And this, I mean, Tony Hawk would be quite proud of that one. I mean, he nailed a landing as well. I mean, on board with Warren, you'll see a bit more. Oh, that's his little spin, excuse me. I can only imagine the frustration there.
He'll be kicking himself, absolutely kicking himself on that one. And he knows that he's got nobody else to blame on that one. And it's just awkward landing. You're getting on the power there as well. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm a front-wheel drive guy, so I don't have to worry about that on landings. I'll just keep my foot flat to the floor on landing there. But these rear-wheel drive cars with no traction control, don't forget as well. These drivers really have to finesse and wheel these cars around this track. As Matteo still in the lead, heading into the Jackie X chicane. We'll be starting the final lap of the race. Can Nicholas Matteo stay in front? Does Xander Reed make any moves? I don't think he does, to be honest.
Nah, look at that face. That's a driver that knows the race is done. There's no point. This will finish as it is unless there's a mistake. There will be no change inside of the top 10. I'm willing to say that out loud. Mainly just so I can try and get a driver to prove me wrong and give us some more excitement on this final lap of the race. That final race though, Paul, at Spa, the final event, that's the one where I think we're going to have potentially the most fighting or the least fighting, because we're going to have drivers that know they're in the top 15 or drivers that know what they need to do to get to the top 15. And so 2 very different mindsets, right? I can't wait. We've had such fun this season so far. It's been really interesting. Which of these drivers can stand out as a contender and to make their claim to be counted in 2025?
There you see the live standings on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll give you things as they stand at the end of this week, at the end of the broadcast. But certainly that top 15 is certainly intriguing. Pye, Sarika, Collins, Christensen, all still within a very good shout of getting that final spot in the top 15. Xander Reed's not close enough to make a move, so Nicholas Matteo's just got 2 more corners to go, and Drago Racing will see themselves as a feature race winner. Nicholas Matteo, I said he'd do it, and he does it across the line with the race win. It's the rest of the field coming through. Xander Reed, Will Chadwick finishing where they started. Pashto de Jong up 1 place, both of them. Josh Rogers up 2 places. Here we go with Caron Andrew Caron finishing where he started. Simone Maria Marchena up 10 places at the end. He did get that double digits, Arjuna.
Fought his way all the way forward. He's got to at the end of the day, right? Knowing that he doesn't really want to be in the position that he's in on the outside looking in, but there's still some time to fight to the very end of the season, and we know exactly how much of a fighter Simone can truly be. Oh, really enjoyed this trip to Zolder. Can't wait for what the rest of the season's got in store for us.
Just 4 more races to go in this season, and well, Nicholas Matteo has just got himself a really good result. A main race win here for Drago Racing, ahead of Xander Reed by just over a quarter of a second. William Chadwick gets himself 3rd place for Heuer setups, ahead of Daniel Pashtor, and then it's the Contender Esports drivers of De Jong, Rogers and Iglesias. Beckham Jasiah finds himself in the top 8 in the end, ahead of Michael Jarney and Dane Warren, who we saw having that spin at the chicane. In 11th place, then it's Roger Christensen for Valkyrie, ahead of Rafael Silva. Pascal Costa in 13th, ahead of the hard-charging Simone Maria Marchena, up 10 places then for Simone in the end. Andrew Caron ahead of Elliot Veyron, with Marina Sarica in 17th. Daniel Savini and Bobby Zelensky 18th and 19th, and Julian Sonnen rounding out the top 20. 21st then for Matti Sipila, ahead of Oscar Pye. Bryn Collins gets himself 3 points ahead of Carlos Penalosa, and Luis Belike does manage to get that car to the finish of the race in 25th. Rest of them, Chunya Zhang, Florian Lebigra, Leo Gariboli, Jakub Maciejewski, all involved in incidents. Quentin Violate did not take the race start. So then, Arjuna, I say it and it comes true. Nicholas Matteo with the race victory here. That's a big result for him in this Contender series.
Absolutely, and I think we're ready to have a chat with the feature race winner. So, Nico Matteo standing by. Nicholas, great drive from you to hold on up front. Yes, there was a bit of a close battle at the end, just kept honest by the rest of the field. How do you feel right now, though, your first feature race win in the Contender series?
Well, of course I feel so good. I've been waiting this a lot of time ago. Yeah, the race was pretty difficult, especially with the curves, because the car was bouncing really bad sometimes. So I just took a really safe race, like not taking too much the curve and just driving safe in overall.
And so now, how do you feel that the season's gone so far? We've still got, 2 more rounds left to go, but put yourself into the top 10 in points. How do you feel your chances are of staying inside of the top 15?
Well, of course, now I have way more chance to qualify. I think I need a result like this one. Well, I will try my best in the last 2 rounds to get similar points at this round. So.
Okay. Congratulations, Nicholas, on your first ever feature race win in the Contender series, and we'll see you in a week's time to see how things go.
Thank you.
And so from Nicholas Matteo over to Xander Reed, who, I tell you what, Xander, you're the first driver I've ever seen rock the backwards baseball hat in sim racing. You pull it off, but you didn't look to try and pull off the move for the win there. Talk us through the mindset in staying behind and settling for second.
Yeah, I think honestly, I'm just trying to get into the Super Cup. I was happy with second. It's good points. I didn't want to risk any moves taking me or Nicholas out, But yeah, it was a pretty snooze fest of a race, but I'll take this P2.
You said it, not me. And of course, just got 2 more races left to go up after this. Have you had much experience at the Saxon Ring? Have you done much driving there before?
Not much, but the little bit I have done, it seems like a really nice track. I think it'll have some good overtaking opportunities and should be a pretty good race.
Well, we'll let you get to the practice. I'm sure it will start pretty shortly, but we'll see you in 7 days' time. And congrats on some great performances in the Contender Esports machine.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Xander Reed, 2nd place in the feature race. Will Chadwick 3rd. And so we chat now with the Hymo Setups number 88 driver. And Will Chadwick, how are you feeling now with 2 rounds left to go in this Contender series? You have solidly settled yourself in the top 10 in points. Not a bad season overall, has it been?
No, I think ever since Portimao, I've managed to kick on, and even when I don't think I'm doing a good job, we're able to get a result. I think that's imperative today when you look at the track and how hard it is. It's almost like driving Monaco in one of these cup cars, because you just can't, like, following is there's so much dirtier, and the slowdown risk through like the second or first chicane is so high that, you know, when you've got a car in front of you, you don't really see the references. So I'm happy to come away with a third and a sixth, I think, in the sprint, and another like 50 points haul, I think, something around that, which is just perfect, really, and puts me in a really, really good position in the championship.
Talk to me about what's changed between the Will Chadwick at the end of last year and the Will Chadwick at the end of this year, because there seems to be a bit more confidence about you as a whole, but also in the driving, right? Delivering a bit more consistently, not making so many mistakes. What's really changed about your approach in the last 12 months?
I think I did a bit of mental coaching with Ian Porter, Crimsix, alongside when I was been helping him the whole year for his races, and he really helped instill a good mindset into me. And I think that across the whole of 24, we've had a pretty good year. And although you've not seen me in any special event, well, other than the Nürburgring 24 hours, I'm really happy with how this year's gone. And to be honest, I didn't expect Contenders to go this well, but I think, like you say, it's just about getting the lap somewhere near in qualifying and then just being sensible in the races. You know, I could have gone hell for leather in this race and really tried to put the pressure on Xander or Nico, but realistically, third place is good enough. It's great, a lot of points. Just consolidate and just make sure I don't make any silly mistakes or get any slowdowns.
So it sounds like we need to get rid of sensible Will now that you've solidified yourself in the top 10. We need wild Will for the rest of the season. Congrats on another solid points haul, Will, and we'll see you in 7 days' time to continue our roll.
Thank you very much.
Always great chatting with the drivers, Paul, but wow, I think really enjoy seeing the mindset, right? Hearing the positivity from some of those drivers. Can't imagine what the story is for some of the other drivers, right? Imagine what Dane Warren's thinking right now with that small mistake. Yes, he finished in the top 10 in the feature race. He'll be kicking himself just a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want mistakes like that coming into your racing, especially when you've had a bit of poor form going into this week. As I said, form is temporary, class is permanent. It's a case now of he's got to pick himself up, and yeah, he got a good result in that first sprint race. Got himself pole position. There's some good points there. Still finished in 10th, so that's good points here in this one, but he needs to just keep that positive momentum going forward into next week at the Sachsenring. It's a heck of a challenge as that track. It's a fun one as well, real sort of a twisty section to start off with, and there you see it's the elevation changes that you have here as well that's going to be a real key factor for these drivers to contend with, almost similar to Portimao at the start of the season.
Yeah, I said there's some elevation at Zolder, which is true, but it's a lot more subtle. We're talking about 20 meters between the highest and the lowest point. It's a lot more here, and that's where I think the lack of muscle memory that these drivers are going to have is really going to prove interesting, and track limits in qualifying will also be a factor.
Absolutely, so make sure you join us next week for that one. But here's a quick look at how things stand as we finish today. It's Josh Rogers who leads the championship ahead of Tristan Iglesias and Mitchell de Jong. As we mentioned, Will Chadwick firmly into that top 10, but it's these positions here that are the important ones. And I would say Daniel Pastor down are not safe yet. They still need some really big results. Elliot Veyron, not a good week this week, will be feeling a little nervous.
And I feel for Moreno Sorica, because qualified well, taken out in turn 1, maybe no real fault of his own, fought back as well as he could, and he's still now 12 points off the cut line when he came in to this round, 14th, and about 13 points clear. So one round can really change things, Paul, and I think next week's unpredictable, and then Spa. What happens at Spa? High speeds, high stakes, going to be crazy. It's
certainly going to be a thrill ride to finish off the season, but I'm afraid that is all that we've got time for you here today. From myself, Paul Smith, Arjuna Kankapati, Hugo Luis behind the scenes on production. It's been a good day at the office from Rogers and Matteo. Until next time, in a week's time, take care. See you soon.